Hello. Today I would like to talk a little bit about my favorite music instrument, the ocarina. There are many things that can be said about it, ranging from what it even is in the first place to how they are classified, but I will focus mainly on three topics relating to it. These are the following. Firstly, I must begin by describing what an ocarina is. After that, I will give a brief description of its origins and of its history. Finally, I will talk about the different types of ocarinas, the materials they can be made of, and the different shapes that they can take. What is an ocarina? In few words, it's a wind instrument that consists of a single resonance chamber and a mouthpiece. If you've ever blown air into an empty bottle, then you already understand the principle under which ocarinas work. Blow air into a closed chamber and make a sound. I will delve more into its specific types later, but to give a general idea, the most common ocarinas are made of ceramic, although wooden and plastic ocarinas also exist. They usually have 10 to 12 holes, and are chromatic, which gives them a range of about 1.5 octaves. For those less familiar with musical terminology, a comparison to other instruments might be more useful. In average, a person can comfortably sing in a range between 1.5 and 2 octaves, although, unlike an ocarina, people have the possibility to expand beyond this range through training. To compare it to another wind instrument, a transverse flute has a range of 3 octaves, so it can cover twice as much as a normal ocarina. While this might make the ocarina seem somewhat limited, 1.5 octaves are usually enough for most musical pieces. It's also worth noting that, while ocarinas can be played as a solo instrument, they were originally designed to be played in quintets and septets. This means that despite its limited range, an ensemble using ocarinas tuned to different keys can cover a much wider range together. Although the ocarinas that we know nowadays are a relatively recent invention, its origins go back to at least 12,000 years in the past. Some of the earliest known ocarinas come from the ancient Chinese and Mesoamerican cultures. Japan also had its own variation of the ocarina. This musical instrument existed in many different places in parallel. Another place where an ancient ocarina was found was in a Neolithic settlement excavated in the village of Runik, Kosovo. The little baked clay ocarina found dates to somewhere around 5,000 years before Christ. The ocarina was introduced to Europe from the Aztec culture during the many expeditions carried out by Spain to the American continent. This instrument went on to become popular in the different European communities, although initially was only seen as a toy. It wasn't until the 19th century that the ocarina became known as a proper instrument in Europe. In 1853, an Italian man named Giuseppe Donati created the first modern ocarina. In fact, it was Donati who gave the ocarina its name, which means little goose in the Italian dialect used in his hometown of Budrio. Today, there are many different types of ocarinas. Perhaps the most common and most well-known ones are the clay, transverse ones, as Donati's original ocarinas were made from this material and in this shape. That said, they are also made from other materials and in different shapes. Ocarinas are also commonly made from wood and plastic. Each of these three materials has its own properties, advantages, and disadvantages. The classic clay ocarinas are of an intermediate price and make a very pleasant, clean, and pure sound. However, they are also quite frail. Wooden ocarinas also make a nice sound, although it's not quite as pure as the one produced by clay ocarinas. They have the advantage of being very sturdy and light, so they're much easier to transport. That said, they also tend to be more expensive, and they're not ideal for professional performances. Plastic ocarinas are by far the cheapest option, but unfortunately, they sacrifice the quality of the sound quite a bit. That said, they're excellent learning tools for beginners and people who just want to try out the instrument. The cheapest among them are also great toys. There are also many different shapes that the ocarina can take. The transverse ocarina is among the most common types, and it's called like this because of the position that the hands take when holding it, one hand from above and one hand from below. That said, depending on where you live, pendant ocarinas might be more common and more popular. In my personal experience, pendant ocarinas are much more well known here in Chile. This is possibly due to the Chileans' familiarity with the Peruvian ocarina, which is a subtype of a pendant ocarina. A very interesting variation of this instrument is the multi-chambered ocarina. It is effectively two ocarinas in one. It has multiple chambers that are internally separated and a fused mouthpiece. This gives the ocarina an extended range and allows its users to play both chambers simultaneously. It can take any other ocarina shape as a base, but transverse multi-chambered ocarinas are the most common. Ocarina ensembles will typically use regular, single-chambered ocarinas, but solo players might prefer this type as they can cover a wider range and produce harmony by themselves. To end this presentation, I would like to leave you with a picture of my personal collection of ocarinas. They're mostly clay transverse ocarinas, but I do have a single bass pendant ocarina and a Peruvian ocarina. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have found this to be interesting.